My name is Kim Gardner. I love associating with good people in good causes. And I'm most pleased, on behalf of Drug Safe Utah, to join with some of the assembled members of the coalition that are opposing Proposition 2. I want to welcome you all to this press conference announcing our coalition. We formed the coalition because we believe Proposition 2 would be very bad for Utah. As you will hear from some of the groups and individuals that have been assembled today, we oppose it for a variety of reasons. For me, the message is simple. I'm not opposed to scientifically based medical marijuana sold in drugstores or state-run facilities. But the proposition means marijuana in brownies and gummy bears in corner pot shops. I have 30 grandchildren to protect. Our coalition has come together to educate the citizens of Utah about the substantial flaws in this initiative and the risks and consequences to our youth, our community, and our citizens at large. We are pleased that the leaders and associations from medicine, education, law enforcement, business, faith groups, patients, and others are joining with us today. We'll be handing out a press release with a joint statement of our position and our aim and a list of those who in a brief time have joined in our opposition. It's an amazing list of concerned citizens. We invite others who learn of our efforts to join with us. As you will see in this statement, we are all opposed to Prop 2 as it's ill-conceived and bad for Utah. And we believe there's a better way to address the medical concerns of suffering individuals where medical cannabis has a scientifically proven basis for helping and can be provided like other medicines under appropriate supervision and safeguards. We will proceed today by inviting Michelle McComber, CEO of the Utah Medical Association, who is with Drug Safe Utah, to read the coalition statement in opposition to Proposition 2. Michelle.
Thank you, Kim. Medical marijuana is an issue that has generated strong emotions and opinions among proponents and opponents alike. On one hand, initiatives to legalize marijuana in other states have led to increased drug use among youth, higher risk of impaired driving, and an increase in hospital emergency room visits, among other significant public health and safety concerns. On the other hand, patients suffering from debilitating pain and other medical conditions have struggled as traditional treatment strategies have failed to provide relief. The marijuana initiative appearing as Proposition 2 on the ballot this November does not strike the appropriate balance in ensuring safe and reasonable access for patients while also protecting youth and preventing other societal harms. We are firmly opposed to Proposition 2. However, we do not object to marijuana derivatives being used in medicinal form, so long as appropriate controls and safeguards are in place to ensure vulnerable populations are protected and access is limited to truly medicinal purposes. Moreover, though continued research into the risks and benefits of medical marijuana use remains paramount, current scientific evidence suggests marijuana contains components which may be of benefit to some patients. We urge the voters of Utah to vote no on Proposition 2. We also urge lawmakers, patients, and community stakeholders to work together to find a solution that works for all Utahns. The hallmarks of Utah's unique policy accomplishments in the past have been civility, compassion, and a spirit of compromise, and we are confident an approach guided by these principles will yield similarly effective policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have invited individuals representing some of our coalition members to introduce themselves and briefly share their perspectives. We'll hear first from Dr. Adam Trentork, representing the Utah Medical Association. It will be good to hear how the doctors of this state feel about Proposition 2.
Yeah, so I am Dr. Adam Tainter. I'm the Vice Speaker of the Utah Medical Association, which represents the majority of Utah physicians from every specialty across the state. We've been studying the medical marijuana issue for many years and have consistently recognized that there is a place for cannabis-based medications in the toolbox of my profession. But as with all potentially addictive substances, there must be safeguards to ensure safety, efficacy, and consistency of the substances used to treat patients. We must first do no harm and respond compassionately to patients' needs. That's what we do every day. Some have questioned why the association has been so adamantly opposed to Proposition 2 and its purported goal of putting another tool at the disposal of physicians and their patients. The short answer is that Proposition 2 is not about medicine. It is a poorly disguised initiative to allow recreational use into the state. Taking a vote on the ballot initiative does not make something medicine, and the emotion-laden rhetoric that accompanies any controversial measure tends to ignore any science that doesn't conform to personal opinion. Physicians are dedicated to continuing the careful search for the best medicine for each patient. As such, we are not closed off to the possibility of supporting proposals for medical cannabis that are supported by credible science and include appropriate safeguards for patient and public health. But Proposition 2 is not such a proposal. For instance, under Proposition 2, the only involvement of a physician who recommends marijuana as a treatment would be to recommend a marijuana card, allowing the patient to visit a marijuana dispensary or a bud tender who isn't a medical professional and doesn't require any medical training, who would recommend various products based on what was in stock and what they want to sell to our patients. These products would include edibles such as cookies and brownies and high THC concentrates and even whole plant marijuana. In some instances, individuals would have the ability to grow marijuana plants for themselves and others. The physician is not informed what the patient purchases or what the patient ends up taking. There is no required standard of care or follow-up with that patient. No record of the products is provided to the physician who gave this marijuana card. In addition, the records of all such purchases are destroyed after 60 days. Dispensaries are not run like pharmacies. This is not medicine. Dispensaries run by Big Marijuana will operate like those in states where recreational marijuana has been legalized, where the goal is not patient care, but profit from a substance that will addict 1 out of 9 consumers, twice that if the users are adolescent. Qualifying illnesses under Proposition 2 for the marijuana card opens the doors for almost anyone to easily qualify for the card. Most conditions on the list have no science to back up the use of any marijuana product. And if the condition is not on the list, it can be added on a case-by-case basis. The provider, who doesn't even need to be a physician, can recommend a marijuana card for just about any illness or symptom and for any age of individual, including infants, toddlers, children, or teens. If Proposition 2 passes, you can be sure that unethical providers will be attracted to the state of Utah, setting up shop much as they did in Venice Beach, California, where providers who otherwise couldn't make a decent living would provide a medical marijuana card for anyone who walked in the door, as long as they paid a consultation fee. Some of these marijuana shops see as many as 100 people a day for a fee. The UMA's primary goal is to maintain the highest level of ethical, scientifically based quality medical care to the people of Utah, and in preventing the health risks, which include addiction, increased traffic accidents and victims, increased suicides, and increased risk of poisoned children that can result from the increased availability of marijuana. Again, we need to move forward in a way that will not harm Utahns, as Proposition 2 would. We urge Utah citizens to reject Proposition 2. If we're going to approve medical cannabis, let's do it the right way. Let's not open the state to recreational use of marijuana under the disguise of medicine. Thank you.
My name is Enadina Stanger. I am honored and humbled to be standing in front of you today. I am a medical cannabis advocate. Due to the genetic condition Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I suffer pain every day that would render me unable to care for my family and my loved ones. If I did not have access to medical cannabis, I had to leave the state of Utah as a medical cannabis refugee to gain access to my medicine. My desire to have medical cannabis legalized in Utah is not only to allow my family to return home, but to ease the suffering of so many patients. However, I do not believe that Proposition 2 is that way. I believe it does not have the true interests of patients at heart. I came into the medical cannabis world in Utah fighting for my life. I was confined to a wheelchair. When I left the state of Utah, there was little medical hope for my survival. There is currently no cure for the condition I have, and doctors had given me little hope for medical relief. After I moved to Colorado seeking medical relief, I became more educated about medical cannabis. After a year of following a strict new health regimen, which included medical cannabis, I was able to stand and eventually park my wheelchair. I grew strong enough to walk again, to run, to play, and to be a mom again. I had my life back. Medical cannabis has been a vital component to my miraculous healing. Due to the constant dislocations, subluxations, Chiari malformation, digestive problems, nervous system damage, nerve pain, and trying to mitigate symptoms that more coincide with multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease, medical cannabis has become a vital medicine to allow me to lead a productive life. Restoring the use of medical cannabis for patients opens up new realms of pain control, new hope, and a way to become more educated as an entire community, doctors and patients alike. There is a way for all Utahns to come to a united resolution for the medical cannabis dilemma we find ourselves in today. One day, soon, we will create legislation that will bridge patients and the medical community and bring relief to so many suffering. We cannot allow fear to overcome faith in a peaceful resolution. Real change will happen when we as patients and community members work to educate one another, when we work together in our communities with our local law enforcement, with our medical professionals, we'll be able to bring about positive change that is needed. I believe there is hope for Utah. I believe real change is happening now in this state. Medical cannabis is a viable solution for many suffering patients. It has been heartbreaking for me to see the suffering of others, as my condition has allowed. I can sympathize with most of your pains and suffering. I can say I feel your pain, and I mean it. I know your pain. There is a solution. There is hope. Love conquers all. There is a compassionate, loving solution for all in the state of Utah. Today, we come together to unite and support medical cannabis and a positive change for Utah. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Sheriff Aaron Kennard, retired, 45-year law enforcement executive, retired from Salt Lake County as their sheriff. I have with me the Sheriff of Davis County, who is also on the board of directors of the Utah Sheriff's Association, Sheriff Todd Richardson. He's on the board of directors. I am the current executive director of the Utah Sheriff's Association. The Utah Sheriff's Association is firmly opposed to Proposition 2. We met yesterday, discussed the pros and the cons. There were very few pros and a whole mess of cons. The marijuana initiative appearing as Proposition 2 on a ballot this November does not strike the appropriate balance in ensuring safe and reasonable access for patients, while also protecting the most profitable person and our youth in our society, plus the other societal harms that this provides. We do not object to marijuana derivatives being used in medical forms. We wholeheartedly agree with Dr. Tainter and Ms. Stanger. Our most important asset we have is our children. That is what the sheriffs are concerned about. The sheriffs represent all 29 counties of the state. They are the chief law enforcement officer in your county. They are elected by you, the citizens. They oppose this initiative. Sheriff Richardson told me that his jail is full, and the prime reason every one of those in his jail are there is started with marijuana. This proposition is a veiled attempt to legalize marijuana in the state of Utah, and we, as your chief law enforcement officers in the state of Utah, firmly oppose Proposition 2. Thank you very much.
My name is Deanne Kettenring, and I am a spokesperson for Utah PTA. As the largest parent advocacy organization in the state, Utah PTA cares deeply about the health and well-being of our children. One of the purposes of PTA is to advocate for laws that further the physical and mental health, welfare, and safety of the children and youth in this state. When that safety is threatened, we respond with action. As an organization, Utah PTA believes several guiding principles should lead the discussion on marijuana. First, we support laws that send clear messages to youth and adults not to smoke, vaporize, or eat marijuana products. Marijuana use can damage the developing brain, cause addiction, affect memory, and impair motor skills. We champion drug policies that establish clear standards and promote a healthy workforce free from impairment and addiction. We do, however, also acknowledge data that shows specific patients may achieve medical benefits from components in the cannabis plant, and we support further research towards providing patients access to these non-smoked cannabis-based medications. After examining the proposed legislation of Proposition 2, Utah PTA has found the Medical Cannabis Initiative is not in accord with our guiding principles. There are several ambiguities that cause us great concern. While we do support further research and legislation towards making cannabis medications more available, we do not believe this proposition effectively accomplishes that task. Rather, it puts the children and youth of Utah at risk and greater harm. Speaking on behalf of those children and youth, we urge the Utah voters to vote no on Proposition 2. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Hayashi, and I'm the Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Utah. Let me begin by saying thank you to the people who signed the petitions to advance Proposition 2, and to those who took it upon themselves to actually do the work to get this proposition in front of us in November. You might recall that the Utah legislature did not pass legislation in other times regarding medical marijuana, and so as a result of this ballot initiative is here. And one of the good things about it, as far as I'm concerned, is I believe it will advance the conversation that we need to have, that we couldn't have before. So I'm actually very grateful for that. The dilemma that someone like me faces is that when it comes to actually casting a vote, you have to be either for or against. I'm a person on this matter that would like to vote yes, but I have some concerns. Unfortunately, casting a vote does not allow for that. Yes, I'm all in favor for those who would benefit from the receiving of medical cannabis, and we've heard a person already who is such a person. And if you read the newspaper recently, the Tribune, you saw Kirby write about his use of medical cannabis. And I really don't want anyone arrested or having to go out of state to get it. What's needed for their health and well-being. At the same time, there are things in the proposition with which I have difficulty. So here's my hope. My hope is very simply that should this pass, and the voters of Utah are the ones who will really decide this, that should this pass, then we will continue to work forward. The governor will take it upon himself to work together with those who advance this proposition and those who are not for it, and to call together the legislature to really work on this for the benefit of all people in Utah. And if it does not pass, then I would hope for the very same thing. So as a person who at this point in time is sort of stuck in between then I have to say that there are significant enough concerns for me to oppose Proposition 2 as it stands. But I will pledge that going forward, I will work for the passage of something that will allow for medical cannabis to be available for those who would benefit from it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jack Gerard, the General Authority 70 of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm pleased to be joined today by Lisa L. Harkness, as the first counselor in our primary general presidency, and Elder Craig C. Christensen, a General Authority 70 and area president here in the Utah area for the church. We are honored to stand with so many groups and individuals who are committed to finding an appropriate way to help relieve human pain and suffering, while preventing unwanted consequences for the state of Utah and most especially for our children. The church does not object to the medicinal use of marijuana if doctor prescribed in dosage form through a licensed pharmacy. We are deeply concerned by the history of other states that have allowed for medical or recreational use of this drug without proper controls and have experienced serious consequences to the health and the safety of their citizens. Therefore, we urge the voters of Utah to vote no on Proposition 2, and we call on lawmakers, patients, and community leaders to come together to find an appropriate solution to benefit all Utahns. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My name is Nathan Frodsham. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. 5 years ago, I became a legal medical cannabis patient in Seattle, Washington. I'd been seeking treatment for a painful condition, and with the encouragement of my physician, after exhausting medical options available to me, including alternative and Eastern medicine, I carefully considered medical cannabis as a treatment option. To my surprise, not only did it help relieve my pain, but I enjoyed significant health improvements. I moved to Utah for a career opportunity where cannabis is illegal. Not only did I have to stop my treatment, but I found that my doctors were uncomfortable even discussing this option. My condition slowly deteriorated and symptoms returned, and I soon realized that I needed to get involved with efforts to find a solution for Utah. I also wanted to share my experience with others who might be suffering from conditions like mine that cannabis can relieve. I began actively and openly advocating for medical cannabis in Utah. Over the past 3 years, I have carefully engaged and consulted legislative, political, and religious leaders at state and national levels, as well as medical policy experts about pathways forward. I have also consulted leading advocates who helped develop programs in other states and countries like Australia. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have had the opportunity to share my experience with the church, along with other LDS patients. I'm grateful to the church for understanding this topic carefully, for listening and sympathizing with the plight of patients, for openly recognizing the medicinal qualities of cannabis, and now supporting a solution bringing all stakeholders to the table. This is a difficult and complex topic, and there has been a great deal of disagreement between affected interests. I realize people see this very differently, and I encourage everyone to learn a little bit more about cannabis, to thoughtfully and critically evaluate each option, and to support the best option for Utah. There are many sick and afflicted, including children, suffering from painful and debilitating conditions that cannabis helps, who need relief immediately. I have studied this carefully over several years, having worked, counseled, and consulted with experts across numerous fields relating to medical cannabis. I also advocated heavily for Prop 2, which I considered the only good option for patients. Good, however, is the enemy of great. There are shortcomings to Prop 2. In some ways it goes too far, and in some ways it doesn't go far enough. I now have faith that this coalition of community leaders and patients will create something that will be better, indeed greater, for all Utahns, including patients. For this reason, I now oppose Prop 2 and wholeheartedly support and endorse this new pathway. Finally, I would like to thank my dear family, friends, and fellow cannabis advocates for the undying support and tireless efforts to raise awareness and help find a pathway that will bring timely relief to so many suffering. I encourage church members to visit our Latter-day Saints Cannabis Information and Support Group on Facebook to ask questions and learn more about medical cannabis and to discuss this new solution. Thank you.
My name is Todd Moon, and I want to publicly thank the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for taking the time to hold a series of meetings to be able to talk to patients, advocates, and all the people who have a vested interest in this subject, to be able to share their stories and to be able to listen and hear for their pleas for help. One of those patients is my son. He suffers with seizures. We've exhausted all the traditional medications to treat that condition. Cannabis has been the only thing that has been effective in treating his condition. Nothing else has worked for him. He's the reason why I became involved, why I started looking at things, trying to create better access for him and for all the rest of the patients in Utah. I wrote the initial concept draft for the ballot initiative. There's also been an incredible effort made by so many volunteers to help create what we now call Proposition 2. With today's announcement, it does not mean the end of safe access to medical cannabis. I am now officially opposed to Proposition 2. The reason for my opposition is that too many patient protections and regulatory oversight were taken out of the concept draft that I wrote. I firmly believe that the coalition of patients and community leaders will find a better solution for patient access. And over the course of the next couple of months, we will get together and be able to find a solution that works for everyone and addresses all the different various concerns that have been spoken today. With our Facebook page, Latter-day Saints Cannabis Information, we will use that as a sounding board where patients will have the opportunity to be able to provide feedback and to share ideas and express their concerns. This will be an incredible opportunity for everyone who has a vested interest in cannabis as a medication to be able to create a new bill to address the needs that can be appropriately taken care of. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. My name is Steve Starks, and I'm the president of Larry H. Miller Sports and Entertainment, and I'm also the chairman of the Salt Lake Chamber Board of Governors. Earlier this week, the Salt Lake Chamber Executive Board met to review this issue, and the board voted unanimously to join the coalition and to support the statement that was made today. As part of that, we want to acknowledge those that are suffering, those that are seeking relief for their children and loved ones. As you can see today by the statements that have been made, we're not against finding help for those that suffer. What we are for is doing the right thing in the right way. Proposition 2, as it's currently drafted, would have major negative ramifications for the business, community in Utah, not to mention the other concerns that have been stated today so eloquently. We want to acknowledge those that are emotional about this issue and realize that this doesn't have to be one that divides us. Utah is best when we come together with diverse standpoints and viewpoints, and we can craft something that will make sense for all of Utahns thoughtfully and in a way that will protect us going forward without negative, unforeseen consequences. Earlier today, the Chamber also released this statement that I'll read at this time. We recognize with compassion those who find relief from pain and suffering through medical cannabis treatment. We also recognize the serious responsibility to protect the welfare and safety of the public and business community in regards to legalizing marijuana. Because Proposition 2 fails to strike the proper balance and lacks adequate controls, we oppose the ballot initiative and urge the public to vote no. We also call upon lawmakers to put in place a framework for the responsible application of medical cannabis treatment while safeguarding the public interest and addressing the potential impacts to the business community. Again, we encourage Utahns to come together and lawmakers, both at the state and federal level, to work on this important issue and do the right thing the right way. Thank you.
As you can see, the coalition is not just opposed, but we want to strike the right balance and work a solution for all Utahns. And you've heard that in the statements that were made today. This concludes our press conference. For members of the media, leaders of Drug Safe Utah and the organizations represented here today will be available individually for any questions that you may have. But we want to thank you for your time and your patience in coming together today. And I want to thank the members for coming and supporting us on this. Thank you very much. Thank you.